Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Morgan. I'm going to be teeing us off for the webinar session today. Today's webinar is focused on maximizing ROI, power of digital experience optimization in modern marketing. We've got two fantastic speakers joining us who will be able to offer complementary perspectives on the topic and really valuable insight. A couple of quick housekeeping notes before we begin. We are recording the session. We will be sending a link afterwards with a few other resources. If you are watching from our LinkedIn live stream, welcome. We're very excited to have that integration as well. You are muted by default, but we would like to have some text-based questions in the chat. You will see a Q&A panel in Zoom, so please be dropping any questions in there at any time. We're going to hold about 10 minutes at the end of the session to answer as many as we can. And if you have any technical issues, please use the chat and our team will definitely assist. I think we're ready to get started.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Okay, let's meet our speakers. First up, we've got Jeff Calderoni. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Elevated Third, and joining him is Jennifer Griffin-Smith, Chief Marketing Officer at Acquia. They're going to kick things off with a short exchange before diving into today's topic. So I will pass it off to Jeff.
Thanks, Morgan. Thanks, Morgan. Great to be here with all of you. Thanks for attending. I'm Jeff Calderoni. I'm the CEO and founder of Elevated Third. We're a B2B performance agency. We're 6sense partners and we're longtime Acquia partners. And so this is special for me to get to talk to my friend Jen. Jen and I met at Acquia Engage London about 2 years ago and have been talking shop ever since. She actually agreed to join the Elevated Third board last year and has been a great help to me personally. So I'm excited to talk shop some more, although maybe in a more public setting than we normally do over coffee and builder's tea. Great to be with you, Jen.
It's great to be here. I'm glad you mentioned builder's tea. So as you recognize, I am a native Brit. I actually have been in the Boston area for 16 years. I've been a practitioner marketer for, oh, dare I say it, 30 years. I've seen all different kinds of marketing in the advent of social and digital marketing. I've been a CMO for 13 years, and I consider myself very lucky to be in a position where I get to be the chief market officer for a company, but it's also a company whose products we use, me and my team, every single day. So we get to feed into product development. We get to say what we'd like to see. We get to talk to customers that are doing exactly the same as we're doing. And so it's, while it's a challenging time for marketers, it's very fun. And I'm excited to be here and talk more about it today, Jeff.
Great. Thanks, Jen. I'm excited as well. And just quick framing before we dive in. So what we're talking about today is how teams can stop overcomplicating digital experience optimization. DXO is the acronym for that, digital experience optimization. You'll hear that a lot today, but how can we stop overcomplicating and get better results with what we already have? So hopefully we'll leave you with a few things that you can actually go and try. Ready, Jen?
Ready. Let's
All
go.
Right. So when people hear DXO, it sounds a little buzzwordy. I have to admit that. What are we actually talking about and how do you define it in real terms?
Yeah, it's a great question. We have many acronyms in our worlds, right? So I think about this as the ability to optimize any digital experience that we're creating. So it's about the process of improving user interactions with digital components like websites. So using behavioral data and being able to make more personalized, targeted approaches so that you can create a more seamless experience. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. We all have a target of conversion, right? Sometimes that conversion is just consumption. Sometimes it might be actually like shopping cart conversion and payment. But what we're trying to say with DXO is there are new ways of optimizing those experiences that are not the heavy lift that we've been used to with tech in the past. And so that's exciting.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that, again, like simplification is going to be a theme today. But with tighter budgets, so we're all seeing that. We see pressure on teams to squeeze more out of less, get more out of the stack they already have. How can DXO help marketers prioritize their spending without creating more tech debt and complexity and all of those things?
So I have too much budget, said no marketer ever, right? So I remember I quote this quite often. Last year's Gartner CMO Spend survey from 2024 was just updated 2 weeks at Gartner Marketing Symposium, and it was the same headline, which is "We continue in the era of less. Welcome to marketing in the era of less because budgets aren't growing." So, that pains us all every day. And so we are working either with the same budgets or with reduced budgets and needing to do more. And the digital landscape is very competitive and challenging. And so, we get to talk to customers every day, but we also run quite a lot of research to be able to form what we do from a product development point of view. So we ran some research recently that looked at it was US-based professionals across marketing, brand, and web development to better understand how they're navigating this giant complex MarTech stack. And there were two themes that came up that I just thought, as I was reading through this in preparation for today, were really pertinent to this DXO conversation. One of which is about integration. 93% of those people we surveyed said that they were finding fragmented MarTech stacks offering limited efficiency and scale, right? So we see that integration is still the thing that we're struggling with every day to integrate all this tech. The other thing that we saw was that 70% of those surveyed said that they were prioritizing vendor consolidation. And that's because integration is hard, but it's also because the budgets are getting tighter, right? So how do you consolidate? So I think in this notion of optimization, what we're going to talk about is ways that you can manage integration, consolidate, use the right tools to actually be able to do better personalization at scale and improve these experiences in this current world that we live in.
Yep. Yeah, and we see that too. Most teams have the tools. They've written the checks, they've spent on the tools. They're just not connected or fully used. And sometimes it's a simplification exercise is both a way for them to get a handle on expenses, but also on effectiveness because they can connect all those things. So we talked about this ahead of time, but there are really 5 big levers inside of DXO that teams can pull. So I want to just tee them up quickly so everyone has a roadmap for where we're going. So we're going to talk about first content, then accessibility, experimentation, 4th is findability, and 5th is measurement. So let's start with content because search has changed fast and it is changing. So SEO, AEO, AI optimization, GEO, all of those things are different acronyms for essentially the same thing is how do we get found? It's not just clicking through search results. And so how do we adjust our content to be found in the AI era?
Yes, my son says AI, AIO. Like, what is going on with
Old McDonald's had a farm.
Yeah, there's lots of acronyms. So for me, so if you think back, we've always talked about content is king. But in the past, we've probably prioritized systems and activities over content, right? We've been very focused on what is the activity execution piece, and the content comes second. I think we're definitely in an era now where content is king, queen, and all things in between. And now we're thinking about how do we get content found through all of these different methods. So as I was thinking about this in preparation for this webinar today, there were a couple of things that came to mind to me in terms of what to do about content. So the first thing is trustworthiness. And as brand ambassadors, we're always thinking about how our brand is being perceived. And there's many, many examples of how AI can erode brand trust because people are worried about what agents and bots and content creation is going to do. But you have to create that high quality, well-sourced, fact-based content for the AI models to favor your content, right? So building reputation, looking at being cited, mentioned, liked outside of your own domain is really, really important to build up that trustworthiness, and then it will appear more. The other thing is being very structured, clear, and direct. Using summaries, bullet points, being very concise. And I actually think that there's a lot of AI writing tools out there now that actually do this better. I don't know. So there's a couple of tools that I use. We have an AI playground internally. We also use Jasper. And it's just fascinating for me whenever I've written something or I've taken something that I've written previously and put it in and say, simplify this. Like, it does an amazing job at it. It just, so that's easy to do, and remembering those bullets and being being very, very direct and succinct. I mentioned third-party citations. I think that's really important. And then regularly updating. So outdated content will get ignored, and it will deprioritize your content by these AI systems. So how you think about a model of being able to keep content fresh. And some people might think, oh gosh, that means more resource. Do I have what we all used to think about, the content traffic cop, and how do we think, but there are tools out there that help you do that, right? And so having actually a practice and a process for content, for regular checks and updates is really, really important too.
No, that makes sense. And we'll talk about testing later, but I think those are connected things.
Definitely.
Does Jasper sound like you? Like, could Jasper send an email to your son?
That's a really good one. I will look at that.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, there is some scary stuff going on with, podcast creation and be able to put the voiceover to make it sound like having a conversation with somebody. Yeah,
Are we real right now? Do you really know?
Is it really you? Yeah, it really is me, Pinch. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I would second all that, and just maybe a plug for Drupal. Like, Drupal out of the box does a lot of that structured content, and I think is really well positioned for that findability in the future.
And writing assistance, the AI.
Writing assistance, yeah, all those things, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get me started. The accessibility. So let's talk about that. I know this is something that's really important to you personally, just based on our conversations, but it's one of those things that sometimes gets treated like a compliance checklist. But we've seen it improve performance too. Like, how do you see accessibility fitting into DxO? And you're seeing examples where it's helped conversion and business goals, as well as being the right thing to do.
Yeah. So I could talk like for an entire session on accessibility, only because I think it came to me as an awareness actually later in my career. And so it was probably right after COVID where I felt through the pandemic like we'd got to a point of having some fairness across all teams because of what the pandemic presented, right? So equality was a big thing for me. Like, this means that people can work from anywhere and that people can buy things from anywhere, and that suddenly everybody had this equality. And what it did for digital presence is meant we all had to think about how do we drive that equality across our websites. And we did acquire a accessibility tool, which meant that I ended up going deeper into this accessibility realm. And I was just fascinated and honestly a little bit kind of disappointed in myself that it had taken me that long to even think about it. And was realizing things like we were missing almost 17% of our audience traffic if our site was not accessible, right? And so in this world where everything should be available to everyone, like, shame on us as marketers if accessibility is not up there at the top of our, and not just because it's going to drive like a 17% increase in site traffic, but because it's the right thing to do, and because now there are laws that mean you're actually going to be fined by it. Now, there are more in the EU, but it actually is for any organization that is even doing business in the EU. So it's not even just for European. So I feel strongly about it just from an ethical point of view, but I also now with my team, we've done a lot of remediation on our own site when it comes to accessibility, wanting to get our scores up above industry average, which I think is around 87%. And again, we could offer, the top 10 tips of what to do when it comes to accessibility, but that's everything from improving like color contrast, where you're placing things, alternative text for screen readers. I never realized that PDFs couldn't be read by a screen reader. You have to remediate those. Well-formatted pages, things like captures and how bad they are for anybody. So there's just lots there and it's not just for anybody with a disability, really. It's for, if you think about videos with captions, wherever you are and you want to watch a video, you're not necessarily going to have sound on. And then the ability to actually make that multilingual too. This technology allows us to do that so much faster now. So to like accessibility, if there's nothing you take away from this webinar, it's like think about that as the importance of your digital, because it's brand impacting and it's also digital marketing results impacting.
That makes sense. And we just found out before this call, as many conversations as Jen and I have had, dozens, hundreds. I never mentioned that my parents were deaf, and so that this accessibility, like, I have personal experience. And what I would say is, you hit it on the head where captions were created for deaf people to enjoy the programs that we all enjoy. But think about airports without captions, or restaurants, or when you see a TV that you want to understand what's happening and you can't because it's too loud. Like that starts as an accessibility thing, and then it becomes a human thing after.
Absolutely. Yeah, we were just talking about my experience at our event in Paris last week, where most of our customer presenters were presenting in French, and thankfully we had translated captions up, so I could actually be in a position of understanding that. I mean, there's just so many use cases for it.
But that technology came from the 80s to be an assistive technology for deaf people, right? And so it just sort of snowballs from there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
anyway, I can't believe I never told you that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to experimentation. So we've both seen how a small test, better CTA, cleaner layout can make a difference, but teams struggle to build a habit and an organizational sort of method to testing. Can you give us an example of tests that you have done and how organizations can sort of build that habit?
Yeah. So one thing I think as leaders we need to do is empower our teams to just test, like test should be in our DNA, right? And I mean, I'm so lucky. My digital team are amazing, and they are both specialists in Drupal as well as all the other technology that we have, and they're just eager to try things to improve. So we were actually talking yesterday, and they gave me a couple of examples of some tests we've done recently within the last week or two. One is around accessibility. We just mentioned that, but actually driving some changes in forms. We saw a 2% increase in conversions when we did testing of adding accessibility onto certain page forms, which I think is just fantastic. And then A/B testing. So we took a specific product page. So if you know, we have a digital asset management solution. So on our Acquia digital asset management page, we started doing some testing on industry using different copy, different imagery. And now we haven't seen conversion rate improve yet, but what we've seen is leading indicators of time on page and click-through rates. So we're actually going to take that test we did just on one page, and we're going to build that out for that product on multi-industry pages and see what that does. But it's also just, it's fun for the team to do, and it's not a big heavy lift. When you have the right tools, it's not like saying, oh, I've got my day job to do and now I'm going to do some testing. Like, it's just built into the fundamentals of what they're doing every day.
Did you have to champion it at first, or like?
Oh, I did not. No, the team
Get
actually,
out of the way.
No, the team, it's so great because, when we've built this kind of ethos of try everything, plus we have the tools in-house to do it. And if you think about your end result, so my end result is, what is the conversion KPI, right? How are we growing that? How is that resulting in customer NPS growth, pipeline growth, all of those things? And if everybody is focused on that end result, then they want to improve that. And so think about ways, okay, if we're going to improve that, then we're going to have to increase our conversions. How are we going to increase our conversions? Well, let's look at the traffic. We're getting traffic from this industry on this page. Let's do something about it. Yeah.
It's kind of fun to have that scoreboard, right?
Yeah.
It sort of unlocks creativity if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So we've already touched on how search is changing, findability is changing, but a lot of teams are still trying to balance traditional SEO with this newer world with Answer Engine and AI optimization. What's the right way to think about the balance between those things now?
That's a great question. Balance. I was thinking, like, is there any balance in the world? It's like work-life balance. There isn't a balance, there's a blend, right? That's what I think. It's just a blend of everything. And I don't think one is more important than the other. SEO is definitely still foundational, but the landscape is changing. And so if we think about like SEO being that way to improve rankings, right? So like traditional search page searches. And I always get that, like, answer engine optimization. And like, we were talking about this a few weeks ago, and I'm like, answer engine optimization. It's such a great term. I don't know that it just means I feel like it's encompassing everything, right? But that's the more concise answers to queries that might not click through to a website, whereas SEO is focused on the click-throughs, right? So both strategies require high quality content. So if you start with, I think we talked about this, Jeff, earlier, if you start with thinking about that answer engine optimization, then you're actually going to do well with SEO too, right? Because you have to think about content in terms of context and clarity, and not necessarily click-throughs.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I would just say, like, you're optimizing, you structured content schemas, those things. Like, that's how you get into rich snippets. Then that's how you get into answer engine. And if you want late funnel cred from OpenAI or Gemini, like, that's what they trust as well as that structured content. So you're kind of doing all of those things at the same time. To your
Right.
point, it's a blend.
Exactly.
It's not one or the other. It's a
It's
blend.
a blend. And so we have a solution called Acquia SEO, which does allow us to see mentions and citations, which I think that, right now that is definitely something that we should be tracking, as well as search engine ranking. So mentions where we know AI will talk about our brand specifically. And so that's really important. And then we're also tracking referral tracking, which we can do through that tool too. So from common LLM systems, which allows us to analyze traffic to see, well, what are people really looking at, right? So I think it's both of those things. It's ranking, it's citations, it's mentions, and then like what click through or conversion do you see off each of those? So is there a conversion directly from the mention, the content mention? And we are seeing customers starting to track that, and actually seeing, we talked about this too, Jeff, like a higher conversion rate from that engine answering, because it's later in the funnel, right?
Yep.
So that's something that we want to track more.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And yeah, to add on to Jen's point, like, SEO, the way we used to do things, that's a lot of early funnel, what is a type of blog content, right? And all of that is being absorbed by AI. And so it's late funnel that you really get that final push onto your website and try to convert from there. Makes sense. So the number 5 is measurement. And so it's one of those things where, our clients and even our internal team, sometimes it can be overwhelming because you can measure everything. That's not the problem. All the dashboards, but not much clarity on what to act on. So from your perspective, from Acquia's perspective, like, what are a few metrics you think matter most when it comes to content performance?
I actually think the ability to measure content performance is an underserved area, because generally what we measure in marketing is, I want to call it like the vehicle performance, right? It's the medium performance we track and not the content performance, right? So we look at what's our email click-through rate, like what drives to our website, what channel of digital advertising drives to our website. But there's such a big piece. I mean, we spend as much on content creation now as we do on those channels. And so we use a tool that allows us to actually look at what content is being consumed by different segments, where they're coming from, and actually what is top performing. And it kind of rates what we mean by top performing, and actually what is corrosive. And corrosive meaning things like you're getting a lot of traffic, but not a lot of conversions. So you could be paying for that traffic, but that might be considered corrosive, right? So I think that's an untapped area, because the more we can improve the content that we create and tailor that content, the better return we're going to get on the spend for the channels too, right? So again, it comes back to content.
Yep. And are you doing anything to measure engagements either by ICP or audience segment, or is that part of it, either manually connecting the dots with the story or on a dashboard?
Great question. We do. So there's known and unknown visitors, right? So that's one thing. And then there's how those both break down between targeted ICP and non-ICP, and what the performance is there, because we all have a notion of what our ICP is, but all of us are getting inbound too, right? Whether we want it or not, from what might be a non-ICP. And depending on how much you're spending on that, conversions can happen there too. So when we look at it by campaign, we call them plays. You know, when we look at like a play we've put out there with a certain target audience, we can see between even our plays how what content is being consumed and what is working. It's a really, really good way of rounding off metrics, right? As opposed to just looking at visits and click-throughs and time on site and conversions. When you can do that by content type, by audience, it's really powerful.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense because we can do all that stuff. And so how do we focus everybody's time and energy? You know, BDRs, outreach, marketers, like how do we focus on the accounts that are really going to engage?
Yeah.
Just a reminder from Morgan, like put your questions in chat. You don't have to wait till the very end to put those in. So if something sparks, please put those in chat. We'd love to answer those as we get to the end. Let's talk about the content lifecycle and just sort of one of the biggest challenges we hear is teams feeling like they've got all the parts. They've got CMS, they've got DAM. So content management system, digital asset management, CDP, customer data platform, like none of it's really all connected the way that they want. How do you see DxO helping to simplify that complexity without just all of that fear of a platform overhaul and technical debt and all of those things?
Yeah. And we mentioned earlier that, you know, from our research that 77% of these marketers said that vendor consolidation was a core priority, right? So I think it's, and then we get back to integration because all of these CMS, DAM, CDP, I'm like, intent, whatever it is, whatever systems you run in, right? Unless they're working together, you're not getting a full view. We are really lucky, as I said, that we run our own tools. So we recently were able to retire 9 individual optimization tools, which was kind of alarming to me. Now, not all of these tools were big ticket items, right? Some of them are still smaller, but as my web leader will tell me is all those tools, regardless of the cost of acquiring them, is a resource intense to manage them. So the less tools we have, the better it is just from a resource perspective. So with Acquia Digital Experience Optimization, we actually retired 9 tools down to 3 by putting in the Acquia solution. And I think that's really helped with levels of productivity. And how that can help us run the analysis across the customer journey is just proven much easier. Now, I will say, Jeff, like it's not it's not all perfect, and we have a vision at Acquia in terms of what we're building, as we refer to as like next generation CMS, as the ability to be able to run prompts to execute campaigns. Very different than the way we're running campaigns right now, which is across multiple systems and takes lots of time, right? So I would say we're running optimization right now with a suite of tools that I think has made us more efficient than ever before, has made us understand the audience, and it allows us to test, personalize, and drive conversions. But I think there's so much more to go.
Do you think that a big part of that is that you've simplified?
Yes.
So you know what's happening?
Yes. And I think we've actually unified across teams as well. One of the challenge, I mean, in every CMO role I've had, the biggest challenge is like, you're like the orchestrator, right? So you have all these groups within marketing that are specialists in their own domain. And actually it only works when all of that ties together. And the tying of all that together isn't just system, it's about process and people, right? And so I actually have a view, Jeff, that the marketer of the future is going to be very different. You know, back in my day, you kind of specialized in one piece of marketing, right? You were a website expert, or you were a communications expert, or you're a social media expert. I actually think that is going to become obsolete. And I think that what we're going to see is digital marketing experts, right, who are going to think about messaging and brand and then want to activate that, like tell something to go do it and say, I have an idea for a campaign. I need, this is my result, go do. And something can execute an email plus a website landing page plus some social media interaction. And And it's all done right there, right? And you can do that when you've got integration with things like digital asset management, because all your assets and brand are in one place, right? And you can do that when you've got integration to your customer data platform, because you can bring in the insights from your customer. But I feel like AI will solve for the integration where we have tried to solve for it in the past.
No, I agree. And I think simplification is even more important when AI is running the show,
Yeah.
because you need to give it very specific parameters, not only so it is clear what it's supposed to do, but then you know what works.
Yeah.
If each component is overcomplicated, then you kind of have a mess both in execution and in reporting, because the variables are infinite, right? So that makes sense. So maybe along those lines, like, how does Acquia's DXO approach help businesses move beyond just that content to delivery, engagement, performance, all of those things together? How would you sort of talk about those things in concert?
Well, I think what we try and do is, instead of thinking about content creation, optimization of that content, execution through a campaign, alignment, and then analyzing, those are not siloed areas anymore. And actually, they can all change order at any time. And so how do you run those as one process? So we think about it as like the content value chain. And there's content creation, there's content execution, and there's content measurement. And sometimes then they all feed into each other. And if you can connect that value chain, and you can do that through like a curated set of AI productivity features. That's what we look at. If we think about all of our solutions, from Drupal to digital experience optimization to digital asset management, it's about what is the AI productivity feature in there that's going to allow for the better management of the content value chain across everything. And what do I mean by that? So optimization isn't an afterthought, right? And so when you're creating content, if there are AI assistant writing tools, why wouldn't it just optimize for accessibility as you're writing it?
Yeah.
That cannot be an afterthought, because you just don't have the time, right? And in the past, what we'd probably do is we'd have somebody writing that, and then that goes into an optimization team, which then goes into a web team, which then have to format it and then have to publish it, and somebody else is
6 weeks
analyzing.
later, yeah.
Like, that's all one process that needs to happen within like an hour.
Yeah, and then tested.
And then test it, launch it and test it and see. And because you can
Try it
launch
again.
it, change it, and yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's scary, but it's definitely exciting that all of that is happening, and it's happening very fast. It's here. So one thing we hear is we'll optimize after launch. Let's go through the requirements and the features, and we'll optimize after launch. And that mindset kills momentum. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you've seen that hold teams back from DXO, and maybe especially thinking about DXO from the very beginning?
So in my experience of talking to customers, especially large organizations that have large marketing teams, the biggest holdback is how the marketing team is structured, who owns the system, and kind of whether it's their responsibility or not. So when this value chain goes across multiple teams, then it becomes hard. And you either have somebody in an organization that's pioneering the whole thing, or you find in very, very large enterprises that it's IT. And IT are actually saying, this is ridiculous. We have so much tech. We've been told to consolidate, and we have to figure out a better ROI. Now, marketing's response to that usually is, oh, no, we've got to go through IT or IT. But I would say they're your next best friend and will help you create that consolidation. And if they're pushing you to do that, I've worked in very, very large organizations where it is hard to get all of these teams connected, which is why sometimes we also see there are digital optimization experts or people responsible for it, or there are experience building experts that sit across multiple teams looking at how those teams can work together. I think in the era of marketing with less, where resources are getting more, where they're getting tighter, what we're also seeing is clients saying, I actually don't have one team where content sits anymore. content is created throughout the entire organization. And how do I control that? So I need a solution that allows people to create it, but also allows us to adhere to brand values and put some kind of approval process in place before execution. And I think that's what companies are looking for, is how can I do that? So generally I would challenge any team to just think about, where is there a pioneer or somebody that can say, hey, this goes across multiple teams, and how do we make that happen?
Yep. And that owner of curation, right?
Yes.
Like, how do we unleash, it's the same way your team did in terms of testing, right? Like, they get excited about making things better, but you still need somebody who's sort of orchestrating all of that energy into a tactic.
Yeah, that's right.
One thing that actually has been helpful for us, whatever you think of private equity in terms of their value to a company, I think they really understand how this type of thing works. And when you're talking to a private equity person, typically they're looking at all of these tactics and saying, when do I get a return on this thing? Which makes the DxO conversation early much easier, right? Because they don't want to wait till 6 months after launch to start seeing. It's like, well, can you do these things on our existing site in a way that allows us to get money sooner? And so that return on investment, return on effort is something that if you can talk to the right folks, then you can show it, right? I think that's the key. And I'd be interested to hear what you think. But sometimes the web team, or when we're building a large website, like that sort of money side and CAC versus LTV ratio and all of those things, it's like that's somebody else's problem. But if you can get that in the conversation, then DxO becomes an earlier conversation.
I would just think, I think about the whole thing just as optimization, right? We're in an area of like marketing spend optimization. And I also think about it from a people point of view. That's just, we have a lot to do every day. Like, it's resource optimization. And resource optimization doesn't mean I'm trying to reduce headcount. It means I really want to give people the chance to breathe and actually work on new stuff and be more creative. And if we can reduce manual effort on things that we have spent too long on as marketers doing manually, because we don't trust data, or the system doesn't work, or actually we just have to go through a spreadsheet and add in a column before we can import it into something. Like, I'm just like, we have to figure out a way. AI can solve that.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of different testing on that, because the joy of marketing needs to come back, and that joy
Yeah.
is understanding what you're doing and then creating new things, right?
Yeah, that spark, right? It's not just time
Yes.
and grind. No, it makes sense. Let's talk about the future. So if you look ahead 12 to 24 months, how do you see DxO evolving as AI, personalization, buyer behavior continue to shift? Like, what should teams start to prepare for now?
Well, we talked about answer engine optimization. I think that's going to that will take over SEO at some point. I think we need to be prepared in the short term for web traffic to go down.
Yep.
And we have to think about where we serve up our content to get the interest in our company and those conversions. I actually believe that websites won't exist in the future, which is an interesting perspective coming from a provider of a content management system to build websites. But this notion of, oh, here's a static site with a wireframe and everybody gets hung up on the homepage, and how many rotating banners can you have on a homepage, and everybody in the company wants all their information on a homepage. Like, nobody who's going to a homepage, if you're serving a proper content and campaigns, then you're directing people to and I don't mean like a landing page that says, hi Jennifer, you are from Acquia. Like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about serving me up that content that's relevant for either what you know about me, what products that I have, what you've seen me search on, where I've come in from, like, and all the which. And that's where I would also like us as brands, from an optimization perspective, to build a future forward market where people aren't nervous about giving data, where people aren't nervous about cookies, because we as marketeers have treated their information so well that what they get back is such a relevant and adaptive experience for them, that it's like nobody fears giving information to Netflix because you want, and you even pay for it, right?
Right.
And they
Yeah.
serve you up an adaptive experience. That, to me, that should be the same for every one of our business sites. And it will have a bunch of content curated that then gets served up in various different ways depending on how your audience wants to engage with that. And I feel like that's the world in which we're heading, and we'll have seen new people come into marketing with different skill sets. We'll see it. I'm really, really excited about AI. I am, from so many perspectives, because I feel like it's going to allow marketing to step into what it's good at. And actually, you know, my title is Chief Market Officer because I want to do less of the ing and more of the market, like the ing
Nice.
stuff that is just
Did
really
you
hard
trademark
work.
that?
Yeah. Like, how do we get everybody thinking more about market? Think about customer, think about creativity, think about what market needs, and have tools
To
work
do
on
the
the ing. Yeah.
Great. It's a great little tagline, Jen. So, but you said websites are going away completely. Like, tell me more about that.
The
What,
websites as we see them, the website of the future will be an adaptive experience that is easily tailored, that takes somebody through a journey in a satisfactory way, which means we'll be able to build brand trust and people won't be annoyed, right? Like we've all got those examples of websites we've been to where you can't actually like finish what you've gone to do.
Yep.
Like, you know, that's got to stop.
Yep. No, I agree. Is there something that marketers can do now to sort of get ready for that future, or if they're, tangible, tactical steps, even philosophical, like how do we change the way we're thinking if that's the future that we're going towards?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, Understanding content and content performance by target personas, I think is really important, and understanding where your traffic is coming from and what you're going to need to build for it would be the second thing I'd say.
Okay. Awesome. So I'll just maybe I'll give I guess my closing thoughts, but I wonder if yeah, if you have some as well. But it feels like to me that I agree that the website or the digital consumption of the future is going to be very different. How we get answers, how we solve problems, how we buy things is going to be different. It's exciting, but it's going to be different. Uh, but the tools are in place now for marketers to start to take advantage of those changing behaviors and be ready for that going forward. And again, just maybe a plug for Drupal. I think Drupal is really well positioned in this world where we don't know what the answer is. So open source adapts much quicker than proprietary technology with a 3-year roadmap, right? And so I'm excited just being so involved with Acquia and Drupal and other key partners that this is exciting change and exciting opportunity. But I'd be curious, like maybe what you're most excited about going forward, and maybe a couple takeaways from today.
Yeah, I'm excited about all possibilities, right? To improve our lives and the lives of our customers, and what technology like AI might bring. So for example, there is a Drupal AI initiative that Acquia is a founding partner of. It's now kind of a fundamental initiative within Drupal, and I think there's going to be some real core advancements that are going to come out of that on top of what is already there. So I'm very excited about that. I'm excited about the ability to use these solutions like DxO to have teams be able to test and repeat. The one piece of advice that I have learned over the last 6 months that I'd say to anybody is, if you can free up anybody in your team or give dedicated time for people to be able to go research and learn these tools, it will have a tenfold impact. We've actually made the decision. We have taken one of our Drupal developers, and from our website, and she is now full-time our AI initiative lead in marketing, meaning like her entire time is evaluating AI tools, what AI we've got in our current tools, and just giving somebody the space and then coming back and sharing. Because I do think that we're all tied up in the day job, and where can we direct our teams to use things that are so we have to give time. Like, you know what it's like, you get so wrapped up in that you don't even have time to so I'm excited, but I want to see it come to fruition. I hear a lot of talk about it, and I see in my everyday how it helps, but I also in other companies that I talk to in CMOs, I see how people are stuck, right? Because they don't know where to get started.
Yeah, well, and you and Akli are making this happen, right? Like you see the future, but I think you're making it happen. So yeah.
I hope so.
Awesome. Well, we have Morgan, do you want to come back and we'll do some questions?
Yes. Hello.
Hey,
Thank you
Morgan.
for all of that wonderful insight. We are going to open it up to a couple of questions now. If you haven't already, please use the Q&A panel. We're going to start with a few that came in earlier, but we'd love to be able to touch on all of your questions. First question, more of a comment right at the beginning, but incredible content. So clearly presented. Wonderful job. In terms of basic optimization for AI, wondering if starting with FAQs on a website and continuously updating the FAQs is a basic way to start. What are some basic suggestions for optimizing for AI?
Go ahead, Jeff, you go first.
All right. Hey, Ted. I know Ted. Yeah, I think you hit on one of the basic things. And so I think I mentioned earlier, like schema markup and structured content is a way to start optimizing for AI that everyone should do. And FAQs are one of those ways. And so that blended approach that Jen talked about, where SEO and AEO and AI optimization are kind of all doing the same thing. So when you structure your content with rich schema, FAQs being a good example, then you're more likely to bypass the organic results and get into that what is a, right? What is an X is it's going to grab from the FAQ and put you right at the top. But like we were talking about before, Ted, like that also is giving OpenAI and ChatGPT more credibility that they know what they're looking at and they know what your website does and what you're about. So when it comes to that late funnel, like who is the best X, you're more likely to be found there because they have a structured idea of who you are and what you do. So it's a great way to start. I think what I would add to that though is just how do you take that and turn it into conversion, right? So thinking about that FAQ and that content is like, well, do we as a company have a really good answer for that FAQ? And if somebody like does click on the source, right, in the answer engine, like what are we going to say that's relevant to that FAQ? I hope that answers it.
Great question.
And then another question we have, how much time do you devote to standard SEO versus answer engine optimization?
Ooh, I wish we had a calculator that said
Yeah.
this is what you should do for your, this is what I want. Right, we should be able to ask, how much time should we spend on it to get the best conversions? That's what I want to ask.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the magic.
That's the magic. I don't know, Jeff. I don't know what you feel. I feel like it's equal, and as we said through the chat, one helps the other, right? So
Yep.
it's not an either or. Although I am really keen to see conversion data based on visitors from different sources, and I think we need more time to see that.
Yeah. Well, and Jen, as you said, like the answer engine optimization is more likely to be late funnel, right? So late funnel questions are more likely to convert there closer to the money, right? Rather than what is a thing, it's what is the best version of a thing. I'm ready to buy that thing. Those are late funnel questions that are more answer engine. But I would even say, like, I don't know what the percentage should be, but what we're talking to customers about is almost starting with AI optimization and working backwards. And so there are a lot of things that are good for, to Ted's point about FAQs and schema, like those are good, essentially for AI optimization, but they're also good for SEO. And so if you start with the future in mind and kind of future proof your site and back into that, then your blog content and all that stuff is still going to be there, but it's going to be structured in a way that's future proof versus just putting all that content on a page without structure the way we used to do it. So it's not necessarily a percentage, but I think it's blended, and maybe starting with the end in mind is what I would advise.
Follow up to that, what converts best, SEO versus AEO?
Oh, I wish I had the answer to that.
I'll stick with what I just said. I think AEO is closer to the money because by the time you're getting to that, if they come to your site with from an AEO search, it's more likely that they're closer to the money. So
I think the challenge right now is that the volume is still higher on SEO, right? So we need a bit more time to measure that.
yep.
I did have one more question that just popped up. When optimizing content for SEO, it's been a long-standing rule that content in accordions, et cetera, is not crawlable. Is AI able to access this information, or is this still not available?
Lisa, I remember that too, and I'm not an expert at that, but what I understand is that with your structured content and rich schema, you can make it crawlable. You just have to take that extra step of telling Google or telling the answer engines and OpenAI like what this is. But I know it was a JavaScript problem in the past. I think somebody solved it. I don't know who did, and I don't know the technical details, but it is solved. Yeah. Hope that helps.
And I learned something too.
Yeah, look at that.
Well, that is all we have time for today. Huge thank you to Jeff. Thank you to Jennifer for sharing your valuable insights. Thank you to everybody who joined, and definitely keep an eye out for a follow-up email with the recording and some resources. So thank you so much. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you. Thanks for everyone for joining.
Bye. Thank you.